So we are going to be responding to a guest appearance by Eva Vargebroek. I pronounce her name if I take a look at it. But she is a Dutch woman who is fighting against the Islamic immigration of Europe. She's pushing a bill. They got, I think they got a few 100,000 votes to ban the immigration from Islamic countries. They're trying to ban any illegal immigration altogether. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow me at Ralphie the Realtor for all of your real estate needs in South Florida. And you can support my channel by going to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the pinned comment or description. Let's check it out.
Europe has become a totally different place, unrecognizable in many ways. This is our homeland. We don't have another home. We want a full and total halt to non-Western immigration.
Eva Vlaardingerbroek.
The border needs to be closed, need to be secured, and we need to say no to immigration, both legal and illegal, by the way, because our demographic change is just really blowing out of the waters here. Europe can be saved. So it's an existential threat that we are facing, and the whole world now has seen it really graphically with those images coming out of Spain, coming out of Ceuta this weekend. That's what we're trying to fight here. Can be saved, but we need radically different policies to the ones that we've had for the past 30 years or so, maybe even longer. I mean, with the Save Europe Act, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. We want a full and total halt to non-Western immigration. That's like the first thing that needs to happen. The border needs to be closed, need to be secured. And we need to say no to immigration, both legal and illegal, by the way, because our demographic change is just really blowing out of the waters here. And if we want to really save Europe, we're going to need more than just closing the borders. We're also going to need an active reversal of the damage that's been done. And the only way that we can do that is through remigration. So those are, I would say, the two pillars really of what we're trying to achieve with the Save Europe Act. We're trying to build a grassroots movement to push our political establishment in that direction and to really take action. Because you were saying, look at the difference that it already made to America, having only 2, 3, 4%, of your population be Muslim immigrants. Well, we are now nearing a reality where Europeans, native Europeans, are going to become a minority in their own homelands. And we're not talking in 200 years from now. We're talking 20 years from now. So, we really need to take action now. And I think that everyone who's traveled to Europe in the past 10 years has seen with their own eyes, what has become of it. Europe has become a totally different place, really unrecognizable in many ways. And for us, this is our homeland, right? We don't have another home. So it's an existential threat that we are facing. And the whole world now has seen it really graphically with those images coming out of Spain, coming out of Ceuta this weekend. But this is something that has been going on for a lot longer. Maybe people just haven't been so aware, or we haven't had images that were so graphic and so violent in nature, let's say. But these types of numbers of having thousands and thousands of young military-aged men come into our borders in a totally uncontrolled manner, that's nothing new. That's what we're trying to fight here.
What do you think? What is happening in Ceuta? Why is this happening? It is an obvious military invasion. It's obviously biological warfare.
Yes.
This is a Muslim replacement population that shouts Allahu Akbar,
yes,
as they storm the border, and they view it as a religious conquest of a very Catholic population.
Mm-hmm.
And then their actions, once inside of Ceuta, they are violent. They have committed robberies, I believe murder, but at the very least, many stabbings and lootings. And so they are here this is a military conquest. Am I wrong?
Well, it's absolutely an orchestrated invasion. I say orchestrated in the sense that there are multiple parties involved. Obviously, there were real reports coming out of Morocco that they pushed for this. They used a legal loophole where they swam officially to the coast of Ceuta, which would grant them the legal status of a refugee. So that, that was one of the things that they knew. And so they abused our system on purpose. But that's, of course, the other part of this is that our system is flawed, and flawed is even way too nice of a way to describe our system. We don't have a border. in Europe. Okay, it's not being protected. And Sanchez, you mentioned it yourself earlier, he is legalizing hundreds of thousands. Actually, the real numbers will probably end up in the millions of illegal immigrants who came to Spain in the past decades. So, our own establishment is doing this to Europeans. They are betraying us. They are the ones, the real traitors here in this story, not necessarily the people coming even. I mean, they really aren't coming, and that's really important, I think, also to understand in this debate or in this event. This is not, they're not trying to reconquer a piece of land that they regard theirs. That's not what this is about. This debate shouldn't be dragged into the debate about colonialism. It's not that the Moroccans are saying, we want Ceuta for us. These young men are coming to Ceuta with the aim of going to the European mainland and then claiming our social welfare, replacing our people, and taking over control in our countries. That's the real aim. It's replacement migration in Europe itself. And Ceuta is the gateway.
Why is it morally justified for us to spend an obscene amount of money as the West to try and protect some indigenous tribe in, the rainforest that's found, right? Or North Sentinel Island, right? It's illegal to go contact this uncontacted tribe that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
And they spend a lot of money, making sure that people don't do that. A lot of money preserving other cultures, if you can call them that, but no time and no interest in protecting European culture.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it seems like the goal is the eradication of European culture and Western civilization as quickly as possible. Why is it not understood that white people of European heritage are less than 10% of the global population?
Mm-hmm.
So by every conceivable measure, we're the minorities, actually.
It's not really that hard to figure out. It's because white people have been far more successful than any other group in history. Asians are incredibly successful, Jews are incredibly successful, but white people, Anglo-Saxons, white Europeans, have been really the catalyst for modern civilization. Africa surely hasn't. You could argue again, Asia to certain degrees. The white people are definitely not the only people that have brought progress to the world, but through colonial projects, through French colonization, British colonization, American colonization, they have undoubtedly brought, despite any suffering they may have caused, they brought incredible prosperity. Africa wouldn't have an ounce of much of anything if white people didn't come and settle there. So, although a minority, people who are successful, an overall successful minority, usually does not get credit as a minority. The same way Jews are incredibly successful per capita, arguably the most successful per capita, they do not get minority status. People don't consider them minorities because of their success. When people think of minorities, they think of failure. They think of uh, terrible circumstances, extreme poverty, hunger, etc. So that's really what it comes down to. But white people, like any other group, have to stand up for themselves. If they want not to have all of this crime, then they have to consider deporting people and not allowing people into the country, or at the very least, being very strict about who they allow and how many people they allow. It is what it is. If white people are going to start complaining about it, expecting someone else to do something about it, they ain't. No one's going to come to their rescue. No one really comes to anyone's rescue. You have, situations where people rescue people. Of course, I mean the Jews eventually, people came to the aid of Holocaust survivors, but for the most part, no one's coming to save you. That is true on an individual level, and that is true on a group level. You know, it happens once in a blue moon, but counting on it, a fool's errand, in my opinion. I didn't live in that reality, so, and I still don't. Thank God I have people in. I absolutely cannot say I haven't had friends and people in my life who have helped me in many ways. But are they gonna hold my hand through life and live it for me and pay my bills? No, nor should they. but so many people expect other people to rescue them and save them. It's just ridiculous.
Like that's the vast majority of people on Earth,
Yeah.
right? But there's like this massive disconnect there. Maybe you could
No,
expound
you're
on this.
absolutely right. Like every single ethnocultural group in the history of the world is allowed to want to protect their ethnocultural continuity. Like nobody would be upset if you say Africa belongs to the Africans or Asia belongs to the Asians. But when we as Europeans say, hey, Europe belongs to the Europeans, Europe is not just a social construct, it's real. You know, Europe is a continent with all these sovereign distinct identities, these distinct peoples that have a shared civilization but are sovereign. That's what Europe is, and that's beautiful, that's rare, that's worth protecting. And we've created what I would argue the greatest civilization on earth. You know, they say you can't do that, that's racist. And that's what we're trying to fight here, because that's obviously false. It's false. It's not at all bad. It is actually morally, I would say, just to want the land of your ancestors to remain that of your children. And it won't be with the policies that are going on right now. And you know where this mind virus comes from, it's being taught in our universities. It's the same thing in America, of course. It is I think also an evil twisting of history where they abuse what happened in the Second World War and say that that is the basis for the idea that all white people are evil, or that we have some sort of collective guilt that we need to make up for, and that nationalism is bad and it leads only to war, etc. And they use, I think, people's fear of being excluded or really targeted also by the establishment, because that is what happens in Europe when you speak out about this. You run the risk of being persecuted. Like you run the risk of being thrown in jail for what you say if you oppose immigration. It wouldn't be the first time. It has happened many times. I know many activists in Europe right now who are under investigation or either on trial. I myself have been banned from going to the United Kingdom. I have been targeted with my mercenary spyware on my phone. You know, all of these things are very real and happen, and the establishment uses that to crack down on something that is totally natural and good, and that is wanting to protect what is yours and pass it on. And so we said, you know, we need to do something. I was sitting feeling rather hopeless, to be honest with you, a couple of months ago, thinking, wow, the numbers are not in our favor. Politics is moving way too slow. People are still afraid. You know, what can we really do? I have a platform, and I heard you say earlier, having a platform is a privilege. I absolutely agree with that. And so I thought to myself, I can't just be making videos and talking about all the evil things that I see unfolding and the way that my civilization, my home, is being destroyed, and you know, speak out in anger and sadness when we hear about another white European boy or girl that was killed at the hands of an illegal immigrant. I need to do something more concrete. And so I called Martin Sellner, who's, I would say, like a godfather really of remigration. If there's anyone in Europe who's been unfairly targeted by the media and by the establishment, it is him. But he's a great guy, super motivated. And I said to him, we need to do something. Why don't we start a European Citizens Initiative? And so we are now trying to use the tools of the establishment of the European Union against them, and to unite patriots all around Europe behind this idea of wanting to close the borders for non-Western immigration and to start remigration. We're trying to force the European Commission to take a stance on that. And of course, they're doing everything in their power to shut us down. They've already rejected the registration of our act, but we're not going to give up. You know, we're in this because we know that this is an existential fight, and it has to be fought now or it will be too late.
Maybe this is a good time to just pop up the website right now, the SaveEuropeAct.com. You can go there. If you are an American, you can support them. If you're a European, you can sign. You have 700,000 and non-Europeans.
For any American who agrees with our views and who agrees that Europe is a civilization worth saving, you can sign up at this part, because this is our pre-campaign. Maybe I should have clarified that. This is our pre-campaign for the launch of a European Citizens Initiative, which is an official tool of the European Commission. where if we get 1 million signatures, the European Commission has to welcome us in their institution and listen to our proposal. Wouldn't that
I think this is a phenomenal thing. I think it's an amazing idea. I think Eva's on the right track. The question is, will these petitions actually lead to something? At the end of the day, all it takes for these European nations, these Western nations, it could be Australia and America as well, is to have leaders in positions of power that can actually make these ideas reality. Otherwise, people can protest and carry on in the streets and nothing changes. So the things need to be done, laws need to be enacted for change to happen. So hopefully that will happen. That would be a wonderful thing. And I look forward to you tuning into the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Leave your comments. Follow me, Rafi the Realtor, for all of your real estate needs in South Florida. And you can support the channel via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the pinned comment or description. Until next time, peace.